Hello everyone, this is Derek. Today I'm talking about a game that I just finished a little bit ago, and it's a game I've actually wanted to play for years and never had a chance to play it, and that is American McGee's Alice. This game came out initially back in, it was either 1999 or 2000, and I remember when I saw the box art for this game, it just looked amazing. It was dark and creepy, and Alice in Wonderland is creepy anyway. So the idea that they were taking that and kind of going even further with the creep factor just completely was compelling to me. The problem was, at the time, I didn't have a computer that could run the game. It was a little bit beyond what I had at the time, and so I never really got a chance to try it. And then years went on, I bought better computers and things, and I just kind of never got around to going back to that game. But it was always in the back of my mind. I always remembered how cool it looked. I was really curious if the game was actually any good, or if it was just all window dressing. So, as I'm sure you're aware, there was a sequel that came out, Alice Madness Returns, and many copies of the game came with the original American McGee's Alice bundled with it. Well, the PlayStation Network just recently had a sale. That was the bundle with the sequel, and the original game was $2.99 on the PlayStation Network, and I couldn't resist that, so I went ahead and picked that up and just finished American McGee's Alice. And I have to say, it is definitely dated. It definitely has some issues, but it was really, really cool. It was one of the neatest games that I've played in a long time as far as atmosphere goes. One of the most atmospheric games that I have played in years. The game was just... well, let's get into it. So basically, it's sort of a takeoff of Alice in Wonderland. Their idea is that she's a little bit older now and going back to Wonderland, so she meets up with people like the Caterpillar and the White Rabbit. She knows who they are already, so this is her return trip to Wonderland. And Wonderland has been taken over by the Queen of Hearts, and she has made everything miserable for everyone, and so Alice is setting out to correct that. And there's sort of this subtext or subplot, I guess, or there's aspects of the plot where this is going into the fact that Wonderland is Alice's psyche, and that in this game she's in an insane asylum because her family was killed in a fire and she's sort of lost her mind and has retreated into Wonderland. But again, it sounds like she's been there before, so this seems like it's the same Alice from the Lewis Carroll story, but this is later, and now all of these horrible things have happened and she's retreated back into Wonderland. But it definitely paints the story as Wonderland is a part of Alice's psyche, not a real magical fairy world. So you go through, and the game really just drips with atmosphere. In fact, when I got it, I started to play it, and I thought, well, you know how it is sometimes you pick up a game that's 15 years old, and it's sometimes hard to get into them because, you know, as much as we don't like to admit it, we are influenced by the graphics and gameplay things get dated, and it can be hard to go back to some of those games. And in fact, this one does have some issues like that, which I'll get to in a minute, but when I first booted it up, I was just completely drawn into this atmosphere. And even though you're talking about a game with a low polygon count, with rough graphics, things that are definitely very old, it still looks really cool and really creepy. In fact, in some ways, the sort of oddly distorted look of games from that time period almost adds to the creep factor, especially when it's dealing with the way that characters are designed. And not only is it just creepy in that respect, they also have some other things that they've done that just really... and I don't want to give anything away because I really do think people should give this game a try and experience some of this stuff fresh. You know, see some of it for yourself because it's just really creepy. The way that they handle the Mock Turtle or the Dormouse or the Jabberwocky or all of these different things is very, very creepy and very cool. The problems with the game really have to do with its age and the fact that it's a port from a PC game is what I played. The issues are, if you've played any games with any kind of platforming, especially first-person shooter games, because this is built on, I believe, the Unreal Engine, so you know that sometimes the jumps, it's a little slippery. You don't really jump on a platform and plant really solidly. You kind of slide around a little bit. And unfortunately, that game has this quite a bit. And it's not a huge deal in a first-person shooter, but it is an issue in a platforming game. And there are a lot of areas where there is a lot of platforming and small little jumps, and a lot of times I was fighting with the controls. And that's not very much fun. And I have to say that that's something that you really have to be patient with. I do think it's worth it, but it can be something that's very frustrating if you're not used to it. The controls also are a little weird because the controls themselves feel like a first-person shooter game, even though you're seeing your character in third person. So it doesn't quite have the same controls that you're expecting from a third-person action-adventure game, and that does make it difficult. The beginning of the game is actually a lot harder than it is later on because of the limited weapons that you have in the beginning. And you have to use a lot of melee attacks. Well, melee is really awkward because of that first-person shooter type of control. So, the left stick is always strafing, and we're just kind of conditioned if we see an enemy to our right, we're going to turn right and hit attack to hit that, to target that enemy. It doesn't work that way in this game because you're just strafing as you would in a first-person shooter. So that takes some getting used to. And it is better once you get some different weapons that work a little differently. Getting away from the melee as quickly as you can is a good thing. One of the things I actually did though because of that, because I recognized that it was dated, I was having some trouble with the controls. I went ahead and set the game on easy. I started the game over, put it on easy because I thought, I want to experience this game. I want to see what it was all about. It's an old game, and at this point in my life, I just don't care anymore. I'll be happy to put something on easy because I want the experience. I have plenty of games. It's not like I need something that's going to, I just wanted to get through it. But also in the beginning, it kind of feels unfair. It feels unfair because you're fighting the controls. I don't mind a challenging game if I'm fighting against the gameplay or that it's just challenging naturally. But when I'm fighting because the controls are clunky or awkward or the platforming isn't very good, that's to me not a fun challenge, and I just want to get through that. But the game does get better as you get on into the game and you get more weapons. The other thing is, too, some of this I think does have to do with the fact that it is a PC game that was put on the PlayStation 3 and it suffers in some ways because of that. There is one weapon that you get toward the end, the Jabberwocky Staff, and that one you really need some FPS controls. I really wish that they had, when they brought that over to consoles, that they had given you the option to remap some of the controls, because the last couple of boss fights when you're using this weapon, it's very difficult to aim and move and then hit one of the face buttons. So you really need to be able to put it up on that right trigger to kind of have a more traditional FPS control, but you have no options for that. So that's really the big issue with the game is the controls. It does have dated graphics, but again, it looks amazing, and it really does have tons of atmosphere. It's a very, very cool game in that respect. So don't let the graphics throw you off unless you really just have a tough time, and that's probably going to depend on your age. If you can remember when graphics like that were cutting edge, you'll probably be okay. If you don't remember that, that's probably going to be a lot harder to go back to. But for anyone, I think the controls are challenging, at least on the console, and even not just on the console. It's just awkward. They hadn't quite worked all that out yet, and especially not for a PC game going to a console. But despite all of that, I had an absolute blast with this game, and I really think it's a neat game to pick up, and I love the fact that they included what a great addition. I wish that more companies would do this when they resurrect an older franchise and bring out a new game, that they would bring in the original, because a lot of times people like me interested in the concept but didn't have a chance to play it. And now I'm just super excited to play Alice Madness Returns, because now I'm going to get updated graphics, updated control schemes, but if I can have this same kind of context or same kind of atmosphere, I am just going to be as happy as can be. That just sounds absolutely fantastic to me. So, so I'm getting ready to start playing that now. So, but I really do recommend, and it goes on sale a lot on the PlayStation Network. I don't know about the 360 marketplace. I haven't looked at that, but I know on the PSN it goes on sale fairly often. So it's a, you've got to pick it up. It's absolutely fantastic. Even if I never get to play Alice Madness Returns, which I will, but just American McGee's Alice alone was worth certainly the $3 that I paid for it. So, so it's definitely a good buy, and now I've got a whole extra sequel to enjoy now. So I'm very, very pleased with it, and definitely recommend that you check that game out if you haven't had a chance to. Well, thank you as always for watching.